Now to West Asia, where it's never a dull day. The region is witnessing a reset. Saudi Arabia and Syria are getting cozy. They could soon restore diplomatic ties. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad could visit Saudi Arabia next month. It seemed impossible until recently, but now it's happening. Assad is being welcomed back into the Arab fold, almost a decade after he was shunned. But some relations still remain tense, like with Israel. Israeli airstrikes in Syria continue. Tonight, we'll try to look at the big picture. What does the Saudi-Syria truce mean for the civil war? It's been on for more than a decade, and it has devastated Syria. Also, where does all of this leave players like the US and Israel? Our next report explores.
Syria was known for its ancient cities. Today, it's known for its ghost towns. Close to 500,000 Syrians have been killed. More than 90% of the population lives in poverty, and more than half of Syria's pre-war population has been displaced. And this wasn't just a war that tore Syria apart. It also burnt bridges between Syria and the rest of the world, most importantly, the Arab world. Saudi Arabia shunned Syria in 2011, as did several other Arab nations. At the center of it all was this man, Bashar al-Assad. He was dubbed a dictator, accused of unspeakable atrocities on dissidents. But a decade is a long time. Today, most of the world has come to terms with Assad's reign in Syria, and so has Saudi Arabia. Reports said Riyadh and Damascus are in talks to restore ties. Saudi Arabia is looking to open its embassy in Syria after a decade. But the full picture emerged only on Sunday. Reports say Saudi Arabia will invite Bashar al-Assad for the Arab League summit next month. The Arab League is an association of 22 Arab nations from West Asia and North Africa. Syria was ousted from this organization in 2011. Now, it's making a comeback. So not only is Saudi Arabia going to normalize relations with Syria, it's also paving the way for Syria's re-entry into the Arab League. Assad has been on a diplomatic spree. In February, the Syrian leader traveled to Oman. In March, he visited the United Arab Emirates. He also flew to Moscow to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin. And last week, Syria's foreign minister was in Egypt. The trend is quite clear. The Arabs are taking Syria back into the club. The civil war in Syria has reached a stalemate. There's a ceasefire in place since 2020, but violence has not ceased. Last year, the war claimed over 3,800 lives. But none of it has been able to shake Bashar al-Assad's grip on power. Russia and Iran have his back. For all practical purposes, the attempt to dislodge Assad from power has failed. The Arab nations now want to make peace. Syria wants it too. Its economy is in crisis. Inflation is soaring. The currency has plunged and there are severe fuel shortages. Syria can do with Arab support. But there are still holdouts. Neither Israel nor the United States are in favor of this truce. Syria is too close to Russia and Iran, both adversaries of Washington. As for Israel, its airstrikes in Syria continue. Israel claims it conducts these strikes to neutralize Iranian targets. Israel has already conducted 9 airstrikes in Syria since the year began. 6 of these came in March alone. So far, Israel had a free pass to conduct these strikes. That could change if Syria convinces its new Arab friends that Israel's strikes need to stop. Israel may not agree, and it could complicate its desire to establish formal relations with Saudi Arabia. There are a lot of ifs and buts, but there's no denying the fact that Assad has emerged stronger at the expense of his country.
Now let's talk about social media's child of chaos, Twitter. Its verification mark, the BlueTick, is loved and loathed by many. It's also highly coveted. But recently, Twitter updated its policy. So you won't get a legacy badge anymore. If you want a BlueTick, you must pay for it. The question is, will you? A lot of people refuse to pay. And this list includes some big names, like the White House And news organizations like the New York Times and Washington Post, they won't pay for the blue tick, they say. Elon Musk, though, justifies the decision. He says it will make Twitter more egalitarian. But the new policy, like a lot of his policies, is proving to be disruptive and not necessarily in a good way. Here's a report. Twitter made a big announcement about its blue ticks last month. CEO Elon Musk said it will start charging for the verification badges. Users must pay $8 a month, while organizations will have to pay $1,000 a month. It was supposed to be implemented 1st April onwards. Well, 1st April has come and gone, but blue ticks have remained. Except on one account. It belongs to the New York Times. It faced Musk's April Fool's prank, an immature one. He retaliated after NYT refused to pay for the blue tick. Musk had it removed. Now others say they won't pay either, the likes of the Washington Post and Politico. The White House also refuses to pay for their staff's blue ticks. Celebrities are criticizing the fee-paying system, including basketball great LeBron James and rapper Ice-T. Earlier attempts to roll out a paid verification system failed. Last year, Twitter tried to interplay between old and new checkmarks. They put the site at risk. Repeated outages were reported. There was a surge in impersonation accounts. And this is a telling example of what could come. If Musk does manage to go ahead with this rollout, it could completely change how Twitter is used. He wants to change the lords and peasants system. But the prestige matter of owning blue ticks aside, it could cause serious trust issues too. It will not be possible to quickly check if a public figure's account is legitimate. This is a breeding ground for misinformation and fake news. And it's not only about what happens after the policy rollout. How trustworthy is the process itself? Removal of verification badges is a largely manual process. Reports say there is no way to reliably remove badges in bulk. This has to be done one by one. Despite such doubts, why is this happening? Because Elon Musk took on billions in debt to buy Twitter. Now he needs to improve the cash flow, and he must do it fast. Last week, a memo from Musk leaked. It revealed how Twitter's worth is now down to less than $20 billion. That's not even half of what Musk paid for it 6 months ago. Apparently, he thinks selling verification badges is the best idea. All while other things are compounding the problems. He has cut over 2/3 of the staff. Twitter no longer has a communications department. The company has borne the brunt of its erratic leader's sporadic decisions. Musk's new shiny toy is an egalitarian Twitter. He also wants it to double up as a golden egg. But will it work? People are hesitant. This could also create a free speech challenge. The paper trail of getting verified could lead some activists straight to arrest. These are the problems glaring at Elon Musk while he transforms Twitter into his pet project. And he has a legacy of not being able to deliver on his promises. Now he may be toying with a system that can cause real harm in trying to become the hero he thinks the world needs. Is he driving Twitter and its millions of users into complete chaos? For our last story today, let's start with a vastly loved dish, the bruschetta. You know, toasted bread served with tomatoes and other vegetables. Many of us call it bruschetta. It's a common mistake. Soon it would be a punishable offense because Italy has come up with a new law and it is taking linguistic purity to a whole new level. So here's what the law says. You cannot use foreign language words in official documentation, not even English words. And those who don't follow this will face penalties. We're talking about fines up to $109,000. Italy's culture ministry is the new language police. It will monitor the correct use of language and pronunciation. The law has not been passed yet. There will be a parliamentary debate. But it has the support of the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni. Those of you watching us from India may remember she was in India last month. Now she's pushing for a language law, and it's not surprising. Meloni has been on a cultural integrity rampage. She's been trying to protect Italy's culture and heritage. Earlier, she backed a ban on synthetic cuisine.
Riteniamo poi che questo fenomeno
Synthetic food does not guarantee the safeguard of our culture and our tradition. Let's say it with pride.
So this is about pride. First the food, now the language. They want to protect it from foreign influence. But the main target of this law is English or Anglomania. Excessive admiration for the English language, that's what it is. The draft bill says it quote-unquote demeans and mortifies the Italian language. And Italy is not the only country saying this. Take a look at India. Many now see English as the colonizer's language, which it is technically. But today more Indians speak English than Brits. So it's our language too, complete with our own words and phrases in it. Nonetheless, the language police sees English as foreign and wants to make Hindi the dominant language. It is mandatory in schools in India. 70% of cabinet papers are now in Hindi. And this has triggered language politics. The non-Hindi speaking states complain about Hindi imposition. Another recent example of this language battle is Russia. Officials are banned from using most foreign words. President Vladimir Putin says he wants to protect Russia from what he calls a degenerate West. And so does France. They're officially obsessed with a centuries-long battle against English. And they're not playing games. Recently, they overhauled the use of English video game jargon. So no matter the country, one thing is clear: language is political. And its wars are being fought all over the world. There are political, cultural, and economic stakes. But why is the English language at the center of all of this? Because so far it's winning. It is the world's most widely spoken language, with about 1.5 billion speakers. Though only 400 million people are native English speakers, 60% of the world's internet content is in English. And as for Europe, that is so keen on reducing English language usage, 100% of its students study English at some point. And why is the world obsessed with the English language? Why do so many people speak it? Because it pays, literally. In West Asia, employees with higher proficiency in English earn high salaries. This goes anywhere from 5% in Tunisia to 200% in Iraq, as compared to the non-English speaking staff. In Argentina, 90% believe that English is an indispensable skill. In Asia and Europe, there is an unsaid rule of publishing in English. The top 10 journals in the world publish in English, and surveys say higher income is correlated with English proficiency. The fact is, global language is based on economic efficiency. But that does not take away from the fact that it's important to preserve local languages. They should be protected. It is crucial to safeguard cultural heritage. It also protects the beauty of words. They're so often diluted or lost in translation. And protection of native language is part of the resistance to great powers. You see, the language debate is a complex one, but it's a war that must be fought, because language can be freeing just as it can be oppressive. After all, the limits of our language mean the limits of our world. And now it's time for Vantage shots, images that tell the story. We're starting with the US. The state of Arkansas was hit by a tornado. We have footage shot by an eyewitness. It shows the sense of panic ahead of the tornado and the destruction that followed. Scientists have filmed a fish swimming 8 kilometers deep in the ocean. This is a type of snail fish. It was filmed in the south of Japan. Experts say this is the maximum depth any fish can survive. Meanwhile, thousands of Muslim worshippers visited the Grand Mosque complex in the city of Mecca. And finally, what happened today in history? The 33rd US President, Harry S. Truman, signed the Marshall Plan. The year was 1948. The Second World War had ended. It left Europe in a state of turmoil. Cities were shattered. Economies were devastated. In order to tackle the situation, the Economic Recovery Act was signed in the US. It was named Marshall Plan, after then US Secretary of State George Marshall, who had proposed it. The US Congress allotted more than $13 billion to help Europe recover. We're leaving you with this. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Holy. Holy. Holy.
ينالكم الله برحمة.
The President signs the Foreign Assistance Act, the outcome of the much-debated Marshall Plan. Pens used in signing the document are distributed by the President to mark a turning point of international history. Over here, a conference of socialists from several European countries meets at Croydon for its first session. Prominent on the agenda are discussions on the Marshall Plan and its effects upon the future of Europe, appointments...